what's lacking in our country.
The only reason that authorities acted on it was because it went viral.
That would actually lead to a bigger human rights crisis.
So it's not something new, not something that is happening yesterday. It's been ongoing for many, many years.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Beyond the Headlines. My name is Amalina Kamal, your host for this latest round of Information Digest. Now this week, we're focusing on STEM subjects and how to get more students interested in them. Prime Minister Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim recently highlighted that the country's shortage in high-skilled engineers, despite having quality engineering graduates, is concerning. Now, to address this, we have Professor Datuk Dr. Noraini Idris, founder and president of the National STEM Association, with us. Now, she'll be discussing on how we can expand vocational training, TVET, in terms of bridging the gap between students and STEM industries. And also, she will be talking about how AI can't completely replace humans in science and mathematics. In the second half, my co-host Hazwin Hassan will be joining me to discuss a human trafficking ring using Tik Tok to advertise their services and the recent bust of the largest smuggling ring at Port Klang. Now, hello Hazwin.
Hi, I'm Anna.
Yeah. All that and more. Now, let's start first by, kick-starting our interview with Professor Dr. Noraini Idris. Professor, thank you so much for joining me on Beyond the Headlines. Now, Professor, to kickstart, we have previously discussed this on the show actually, but I would also like to gain your thoughts on the recent SPM results. Now, from your observations, Professor, what are some of the areas of concern we must also consider in supporting a dynamic examination?
Yes, we want to go for testing the student with higher order thinking, but at the same time also I think there's some question must be the application, what they have learned into the everyday life also must be inculcated in our examination results. But the recent SPM is really very scary, showing on the physics and maths are very, very low passing. Like in Germany, what I see is that they not only test paper and pencil, but they also testing on the lab work, and also they also test like oral explanation in STEM concept. So we could suggest that the Ministry of Education could think along the way to do that, not only in terms of just paper, where students said, oh, I can't memorize, I can't remember, so I cannot do well in my paper. But maybe, these are the things that we can also make sure that there's a lab testing, and also the oral presentation on the concept of science. So that when they do the oral presentation, I noticed that in overseas they did that. When they come to the universities, even though there is, but when we ask them to argue out, to explain using a certain concepts in their project or whatnot, they're still lacking in that explanation and the argumentation. So we need that. We need a student that be able to argue out rationally, scientifically, which is lacking among our students.
Right, thank you, Professor. Now, given this fact, I would like to understand also, are there any other areas of concern or at least gaps that you would like to address at the upper secondary school level here to strengthen the foundation in just basic science and mathematics at least?
What I notice is that the teaching perform well in your maths or science. Most of them say that they don't understand the concept that being taught by the teacher. And some of the teacher, they're rushing when they're teaching the subject because of they want to complete the syllabus. So all these cause the student do not enjoy learning maths and science, and they also not doing well in their grade. So we really hope that Ministry of Education doing something to help all these teachers to make sure that wherever they are, especially in the suburb and also in the rural area, to polish up their teaching and to make the teaching fun, and the concepts is being understood well by the student. And like what the National STEM Association doing, and also University Malaya STEM Center now, we working hand in hand with the teachers and the student to come out with the innovation product. But all the innovation product must be linked with the concept of chemistry, physics, and maths. So with that, we'll make them read more, explore more, and improve more. So we have been, this project we have conducted since 2019, and we noticed that the student really, those in the project really improved. Recently, during SPM results, 15 of them in Form 5 out of 7 states in the country, 3 states that have Form 5, and most of them got either straight A, and not only A, but A plus and so forth, because they understand all those maths concept, physics concept through doing activities.
Through doing activities, basically you're talking about the environment, but in what other ways can school administrations directly support and encourage their teachers, especially in implementing innovative teaching methods that prioritizes student engagement and exploration here?
We really hope that the Ministry of Education and Ministry of Higher Education, they need to sit down. And I think they are already starting to sit down now between Ministry of Education, Higher Education, and also the MOSTI. Yeah, they are already sitting down to look how can they embrace the challenging of the interest among school children, and also what they can do once they have completed their studying at the school level. And on top of that, the training agency that related to train future leaders, whether they are the principal, whether they are officer in the state's education, they must make sure whatever grade degree they hold, they must have the interest, and they must plan together to make sure that all the principal in the we have about 10,000 schools in Malaysia, primary and secondary. So all these principal, the principal and the headmaster, they also have leaderships stamp, to make sure that they can prepare well the lab in the school, because all these science they need to do a lot of lab work. So if the leaders at the school level, they do not plan a proper lab work and a computer lab work, this also will hinder the interest among the student to venture, to explore more on the concept of science and mathematics.
Professor, can you also expand on how project-based learning and real-world applications can be incorporated into STEM curriculum, especially to enhance student interest and understanding here?
Partnering between university, industry, and the school. So we bring the school student to the industry and see how the career involving like manufacturing, like chemical engineer, or medical and so forth, to expose them earlier the career path and what type of job they are doing. Especially like TVET.
Since you raised about TVET, now the Prime Minister himself, said that the country has a shortage of engineers, and although our engineers are good and are well accepted, we still lack engineers with high skills, and that is the gap and niche that we need. Hence, there needs to be a focus on technical and vocational education, as well as training, TVET, as well as engineering education. Now, Professor, how can we ensure that TVET spur interest in STEM education, or at least help the cause? We know that STEM courses can be quite daunting, deterring away, especially our young ones, to enter and pick up the course. But can TVET actually provide that bridge for our students? Maybe you can help map out the rationale here.
We don't want TVET just changing black oil of the car or repairing tire. We don't want that. We want students with a high skill of TVET, with some, not say high achievement in STEM, but we also want them to know something on the math science in order to them to strengthen up their TVET skill. For instance, if in their culinary, the TVET culinary, they must know something on nutrition and what they should do, what are the testing involved. So we want to produce all this type of the interest and the initiative. And also, like now, we know that in Malaysia, we have industry also in Selangor where we build spare parts for plane. So this is also that it involves a lot of the skill on technical and vocational, the TVET. But even though it's a technical vocational, but behind that, they need a strong in the maths, or else they will not be able to come out with a good spare parts of in the plane or aviation. And similarly, in the area of agriculture, you know, people talking about to make sure that agriculture really being widespread by the use of drone. But yes, we cannot just spray fertilizer throughout the area to do our farming. But we also must know which area need fertilizer, which area need pesticide to be sprayed. So all this means analysts to help TVET to make sure that in the agriculture being planned properly, and then the technical parts is also there.
Right, Professor, let's go into, the prevalence of artificial intelligence here. What specific skills and knowledge do you think should be emphasized in education as well as training programs to prepare students in handling this sort of climate, especially when, they are influenced or at least surrounded by AI?
When we talk about AI, definitely there's a lot of programming there, coding, learning machine learning related to additional mathematics. There must be a strong additional mathematics and also physics to be taught in the school. So, but before we strengthen up all this concept, they must be exposed well, or else we are only being left as a user, not a inventor, not a real the design thinking process happening there without the admits. So we really need to help our citizen, our community, our student to strengthen up their admits, or else we only become a user of AI, not the inventor, or not to strengthen up on the concept of AI.
Right. Professor, still on artificial intelligence and how they might impact, the interest towards professions such as, mechanical engineering, accountancy. Now, these are technical professions that are still considered very important, but a lot of people might think it's not because we have, ChatGPT and other sort of AI, assistants here. But don't you think that there are still unique contributions of human judgment that must be considered, which includes creativity, ethical considerations, because we want to at least emphasize that there is a need of this human touch when matched with, the technical professionals that complement, AI capabilities?
Definitely, because we just cannot be just memorizing concept and just put the puzzle together just like that. Cannot. If we follow our national philosophy of education to produce a well-balanced citizen, a well-balanced student in terms of the cognitive. The cognitive means the strong concept of science, technologies, engineering, and mathematics must be there. And then not only that, in the philosophy of education, also emphasis on we must produce human beings that they are effectively passionate, ethically, and then the hands-on.
Now, the Education Ministry has taken several measures, including urging parents to refocus, children's study on mathematics and science. How would you like to also echo this?
STEM is very, very important because it's a concept that being used in all the career. Then especially now we are in the fourth industrial revolution, and then there's a lot of industry using digital and automation. With all those things, definitely without the STEM skill and the STEM concept and the human centric towards all this STEM, we cannot go far. Our country just, we won't become a developed country. As just a user, we cannot go far.
For creative exploratory learning experiences, we want to also understand from your observation methods that you've noticed in other parts of the world that Malaysia can actually adopt, and also, at least encourage parents to refocus their children's education towards mathematics and science.
I visited Finland. I visited Singapore, visited UK. But what I noticed that they really blend their teaching technique together with the strengthening of concept. And then, like in Finland, in order to become their teacher, they must, for instance, if they want to become a mathematics teacher, they must be strong in the mathematical grade. So they have to go. You want to become? They have to go to the maths faculty in Helsinki University, and also they can go to the education faculty, so that once the teacher graduates, they will be strong in the concept, and then they also strong in the teaching technique, the pedagogy. So this is also what's lacking in our country. Except University of Malaya, I see the curriculum is very strong, where they produce a science and maths teacher under the Faculty of Science. They call it Bachelor of Science with Education, whereby they, in order to become a science teacher in physics, they must be attending a physics courses and also go to the Faculty of Education to blend with the pedagogy. So this is the only university that I've seen doing training teachers with the program of strengthen up their science concept or maths concept and also their pedagogy concept. I think this is also another area that all of Malaysian university can look upon, how Helsinki train their teachers and also their University of Malaya. And on top of that, I also have visited Singapore. Singapore, they started to recruit their teachers immediately after they cleared their A-level, and then before the result is out, the candidate they have just set for A-level have to go to do become a contract or a part-time teacher in the school. So then they have to inform to the principal, said, okay, I'm going to apply to become for teachers training courses in the university, but the requirement is that they must be exposed as a part-time or contract first while waiting for the results. So that's how Singapore train their teachers. So the moment the result is out, if the result is out good, and then it's recommended by the principal saying that yes, she or he is a good candidate to become a future teachers, then NIE, National of Education of Singapore, will interview them and come in. So this is another model that we could look at it to get a very dynamic teachers, strong in their content, and then they're passionate in their teaching. That's why we see the PISA results, the International Maths and Science results. Singapore is ranking number 2 in the world, whereas we Malaysian is below OECD results for math, science, and reading. So this is also, we have to really work it out to make sure that we produce a versatile and strong in concept, and also the human touch from the teachers to the student.
Right. We understand that, teachers are it's just one of the stakeholders in shaping the development of students in Malaysia. So again, I would like to draw the attention back to, parents' role in developing, high-skilled school leavers here. Should at least parents, especially in the climate of, democratizing education, push for STEM education, more aggressively, and what sort of role they should play at least?
Yes, I agree with you, because the parent association, they should be working closely with the school and see what are the new changes, what are the new things, especially in the curriculum, to make sure that the children, being taken care well at home, be supported at home. They of course, they don't have to know to calculate mathematics and so forth, but at least they know what is the philosophy of mathematics or STEM at the school level, so that they can support something to make sure that their children learn something better at home, and then guide them, bring them to a lot of culture exposure on the STEM career and so forth. See, is also very, very important, so that the bridging between the education and our system is, especially in STEM, is there. But it's very, very low. So all of us, the parents, the community, the teachers, the minister, the director of each education state, we have to work hand in hand.
Hence, there's a question of whether the country should also push towards STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, because there is a bigger potential impact to that in terms of, how that can develop the future of our nation. Maybe you can also help share your thoughts on this STEAM.
I think before we go to STEAM or STREAM, some people go for research, religion, and all these things. We have to make sure that our children at school level, our teachers, their foundation on STEM need to be very strong first. But while strengthening their concept on STEM, on the STEM, then we humanize it, with the arts or the religion or the research base, to make sure. But of course, as I mentioned earlier, on the philosophy of education, if we can blend the STEM and the philosophy, the STEAM and the STREAM, we'll be able to fulfill.
Thank you so much, Professor Dr. Noraini Idris. We appreciate your insights so far. To our audience back at home, if you do agree or you have comments to the professor's take on the matter, please do share on our comment section. But don't go anywhere yet, because now we want to move on to our second segment of the day, which I would like to bring Hazrin also in this particular discussion. About 2 days ago, at least, there was a report stating that human trafficking syndicates has utilized online spaces to promote their services. How crazy is that?
Pretty. I mean, I think it's was a really alarming discovery, to say the least. And the only reason that authorities acted on it was because it went viral. It came out on TikTok, the social media platform, a video promoting these sort of transport services of shipping undocumented Indonesians, particularly from Malaysia, back to their country, were openly advertised on the social media app. So I think that's particularly concerning, because it got to a point where the video went viral, and only then authorities acted upon it.
Yeah. And for those of you who want to know a little bit more detail on these services, so apparently those behind the syndicate are actually advertising speedboat service to undocumented immigrants that for a price, obviously, and they would ferry those in Selangor, Melaka, Negeri Sembilan, as well as Johor to various destinations in Indonesia, including Batam, Dumai, and Bengkalis Island. Now, the trips, which were advertised for those travelling without passports or with expired visas, are priced between 1,500 ringgit to 2,200 ringgit. But what's concerning is that, apart from just national security here, anything could happen. the levels and layers of exploitation, especially when it comes to human trafficking, these undocumented, I suppose, citizens may not even reach their destination, and that would actually lead to a bigger human rights crisis, right? Now, yesterday, after the report went public, although it was, this services was already up and running online, so we did like a scope on social media other than TikTok, and we found, especially on Facebook, like about 20 or more groups such as this, and they use the term jalo belakang. So when they use that, basically it means that you are actually trying to transport yourself through illegal channels, jalo belakang, hence the name. Anyway, following up to that, so we reached out to MCMC to understand how the agency, or at least the communications ministry, is addressing this. We did got a response from the Indonesian embassy, and this is what Ambassador Hermano had to say. Apparently, the Indonesian embassy is actively working with Malaysian authorities to curb the activities of cross-border human traffickers, especially when they've detected about this particular service since 2 years ago. Now, the Indonesian ambassador also said that the complication when it comes to this particular predicament is that tracing the people behind the accounts is not easy because many use fake names, making it difficult to obtain accurate information. And when they close one account, at least the embassy flags one account, another one opens. Right? So, hence, their push is actually to work very closely with the Malaysian counterpart, especially when it comes to the Coast Guards, the collaboration between Coast Guards, the MMEA, as well as the Indonesian Navy and Indonesian Maritime Security Agency here.
Speaker, you brought up how it's rather difficult to track down these accounts because it just keeps they'll just keep changing their names and accounts, right? And then they'll delete the prior one. So props to MMEA because they've actually gotten down to at least one person behind the whole thing, the mastermind of the syndicate, and they've identified it as Aching. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Right.
Aching, alias Susanto. So apparently this account was found through TikTok. It was one of the TikTok accounts. And this person was responsible for smuggling thousands of illegal immigrants to and from Indonesia for the past decade. And in fact, this syndicate that they've just unearthed really is part of a much larger group that used to operate in the area. It's just a splinter of that whole entire ring. And apparently, as per what was reported by us, was that this syndicate was responsible for 3 major boat tragedies in the past, off Johor's waters, in Teluk Balau back in 2021, Teluk Ramunya in 2022, and Pontian in 2022. Now, from these tragedies, it's claimed the lives of some 35 people.
Now, this is what I meant when I said, it's the service might be harmless, but the implication of it, you've got lives lost, and you don't necessarily know what became of the victims, right? And then whether or not their families were even properly notified, or even notified only after period of time, because being undocumented here is not necessarily, easy for anyone to identify the remains in that sense, because you have to understand. I wouldn't want to be so morbid about it, but how would you, detect between the two nationality if you're undocumented?
True. I mean, obviously, in most cases, and not just in the case of what's happened between Malaysian and Indonesian waters, in any case of human smuggling, human trafficking, where you are part of a, there's a shipping sort of syndicate going on, and everything's shady, and normally it's done on really, really bad boats, boats that are not designed to ship humans, basically, for that amount of distance. And eventually you will get accidents, they'll capsize, they'll drown. Most of these people on these boats, they probably have never ever been taught to swim ever in their lives,
Yeah.
don't know how to swim. So in the event of an accident, the boat capsizing, literally it's just a matter of time before they drown to their death.
Right.
And so that, most of the time, and I've heard of cases, not this one in particular, but I've heard of cases where humans being smuggled and trafficked from one continent to the other. When they capsize or they drown for whatever reason, they're just left there. So in other words, the families will never ever get to see or have these bodies returned to their families ever again. So
Right.
it's really sad. It's such a tragedy, really.
It's such a tragedy. And at least on the Indonesian embassy side now, Ambassador Hermono actually said that the embassy had consistently pushed for better awareness among its citizens, not to trust agent services that promise reputation offers through illegal channels, or even job offers. If they're still in Indonesia coming to Malaysia, everything should be through proper channels, not illegal channels. And he also urged undocumented Indonesian citizens, whether they came in without proper visa or their visa expired, to actually come forward to the embassy instead of risking themselves through the illegal offerings, because we've already mapped out what would happen, the potential risks through those who actually want to opt for illegal services. Now, the Indonesian embassy also shared statistics in terms of undocumented citizens coming in. Now, they actually receive an average of 30 to 35 undocumented Indonesian citizens per week. And to date, it has facilitated the repatriations of almost 2,000 undocumented Indonesian citizens back home between 2022 to 2024. So again, at least from the embassy's front, because this is official, I suppose, reaction that we've received so far, apart from other authorities aside from MMEA, where they are working closely with the Malaysian authorities in mitigating this situation. And at least for this week, more than 200 undocumented individuals will be sent back to Indonesia via the Malaysian Immigration Department. Yeah. So moving on, we want to also talk about another smuggling syndicate that was unraveled in Port Klang. For this, I have Hazrin Hassan to deliver the news and expand it for us.
Right, so on Wednesday, the NSC reported that the largest smuggling syndicate ever on record at Port Klang was foiled by teams from multiple agencies. Now, I myself wrote this story, and we were informed by sources. And the sources told us that in a special operation led by the MACC, the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission, authorities acted on combined intelligence with cooperation from the Customs Department and the Inland Revenue Board. From this operation, 19 container trucks were detained, suspected of carrying various untaxed goods smuggled out without inspection. According to sources, initial investigations revealed that the syndicate operates more than 10 forwarding companies used to smuggle imported goods by making false declarations. Now, the other sort of shocker to this whole raid and foiling of the syndicate is that it has been going on for at least the last 10 years. So it has, in that period, in the last 10 years, the country has lost an estimated 3.5 billion ringgit in terms of tax revenue, based on a minimum tax value of 7,000 ringgit per container from each of these falsely declared taxable items. These taxable items were actually, through these forwarding companies, they would use a customs form 9 for breaking bulk purposes, and they would declare these taxable items as non-taxable items, as wheelchairs and medical supplies. So this is their modus operandi. This has been going on for the last 10 years. Intelligence also revealed, sources said, that these flying containers would enter the public bonded warehouse at the North Port in Port Klang for only 10 to 15 minutes to deceive authorities without undergoing customs inspection, and then leave the port to be distributed nationwide. The whole thing has involved around more than actually 10 forwarding companies freight forwarding companies. So this is quite something. This is actually, and as I mentioned earlier, this is the biggest ever smuggling syndicate that has cost the country quite a lot in terms of loss in tax revenue.
More than 3 billion in that sense. There's a lot of loopholes here, I noticed, right? But from this, were there some, I don't know, responses or any other follow-up developments that you received from authorities at least, or in terms of the operation? Because I believe it seems to me like it's a part of a bigger scale of, crackdown towards, illegal syndicates here.
Yes, we did get the MACC Chief Commissioner Tan Sri Azambaki to confirm that the MACC has indeed applied for the remand of at least two individuals at the Putrajaya Magistrate Court recently, with the court granting a 4-day remand for those detained. And we've also learned from the MACC that there will be more arrests to come, and that they have identified all parties involved, including the main mastermind behind this, who is believed to be operating, running things from abroad. He's not based here in this country, but is based abroad. They've also identified the company owners, the forwarding agents, the forwarding companies, custom officers complicit with the syndicate, and all of these have been identified, and arrests will be made at some point soon.
Right.
Who these people are, especially when he mentioned that customs officers complicit will also be arrested, who they are exactly, what ranks, that hasn't been.
Of course, it's like a lead that they probably wouldn't want to.
Exactly, they haven't really given us any clues as to who they are.
Right.
But we will continue to get updates from authorities, especially the authorities involved in the operation.
Right. I'm curious to know whether the port authorities, or at least the port side in Port Klang, mentioned anything to you.
Right, so Northport, which is one of the port's operators, they operate the port there at Port Klang. So Northport, that the CEO, Dato Azman Shah Muhammad Yusof, actually responded to queries sent by Business Times, our Business Times, and he told BT that efforts to combat smuggling, in this case, must be carried out throughout the supply chain, and not only at the ports, but also the authorities' procedures to combat smuggling, right? He says that the overhaul alone, the process overhaul alone is not enough. There's got to be improvement measures that must be taken periodically, or whenever a new way of smuggling is detected. Because I'm sure they'll get creative every time, they think that the authorities are onto them. Obviously, they're thinking far ahead, and to ensure that authorities then can stay ahead of any emerging threats, and to continue to safeguard the nation's interests effectively. Now, somewhat echoing what Dato Azman said, is the C4CO, C4 being the Centre to Combat Corruption and Cronyism, C4 Centre, and a corruption watchdog, Pushpan Murugaya. So he also had quite some similar arguments, and what he said really sort of echoes what Dato Azman said. So yeah, I think let's take a listen to what Pushpan had to say.
I think the main issue the custom needs to address is to look at its SOP again. It's very common to hear freight forwarding companies giving inaccurate classifications of goods. In this particular case, they're classifying those goods as medical equipment. I've also heard of companies where unknown companies were used. So it's not something new, not something that is happening yesterday. It's been ongoing for many, many years. And this problem is already known. So I think it's important for the customs or the government to have perhaps a committee to look down and see what is wrong with the entire SOP. What are the processes that need to be changed? What are the improvements that needs to happen in order for customs to be more efficient as a means of collecting revenue for the government? Now, the other issue is, when you have these companies or these issues popping up very often, there should be a database of legitimate freight forwarding companies so that we can detect and identify who are the ones that exporting and importing certain goods. So when they are caught with illegal activities, we should be able to blacklist them and look at their activities and perhaps get their directors or their owners to be accountable. I think that element is missing in terms of finding accountability and looking at beyond the companies who are involved in the business themselves. Now we cannot keep losing money, like this when we have when it's known to be happening, when it's common knowledge, when it's always been happening over and over again. There should be initiative by customer itself to actually try to find ways to solve for this problem of instead of carrying on this business as usual attitude. Now it's also important to understand why are these ships or these containers allowed to be docked temporarily and then letting them go. There has to be some form of collusion. We have to identify, was there any bribery paid to any officers, who was involved in the entire process, who was signing off those documents, and also what happened to our scanners. We invest so much of money to actually have scanners to help the custom officers be more efficient in scanning for contrabands or smuggled goods. So these are all taxpayers' money that has been invested to ensure that we have a good agency to help us improve our revenue for the country, but it appears not to be working. So I think the most important thing is for us to look at how we want to improve the entire process, look at the SOPs, look at the interventions that can be done, and perhaps they need to have an independent oversight body or even from the parliament itself to address this issue from stage one right up to the end. Too much money has been lost through this kind of leakages that is actually harmful for the country.
Now that is on, the smuggling bust that took place in Port Klang and the breakdown of it all. Now we also still on similar topic in terms of how people are, making basically ways and digging through holes just to smuggle benefits basically out of the country. So apparently smugglers now are shifting to RON 95 following diesel rationalization announcements, says Minister of the Domestic Trade and Cost of Living. Now, Dato' Armizan Muhammad Ali also disclosed that this new strategy was discovered by officers stationed at entry points in 4 states, namely Perlis, Perak, Kedah and Kelantan. Now, speaking to reporters, the minister said they detected the new tactics carried out by smugglers in 4 states since early this year. Officers at 8 entry points highlighted that at least, when it comes to this RON 95 smuggling, basically the smugglers still get a high profit margin.
Obviously, we have cheap fuel, and that's the whole point of smuggling fuel out of this country, because we are heavily subsidized. But obviously, that's going to change sometime soon. And now, the reason as to why they're switching to RON 95 hasn't quite been made clear, at least by the ministry overseeing this, the KPDN, or the Cost of Living Ministry.
But the modus operandi used involved repeated process of purchasing at petrol stations around border states. Now, I suppose if you do notice any, suspicious activities in your nearby petrol stations, especially when you live near the border, you can actually report directly to the ministry. The ministry has, apps, right, and hotlines that you can actually do.
We can always go to their complaints page on their website. If we all take that onus of responsibility to be responsible citizens, I think, and mindful citizens, I think this will help curb this issue.
Yeah, because the ministry has also informed petrol stations to also, stay vigilant, because if they don't make full reports, it's actually, not to say it's a crime for them, but they'll be losing out as well in this sense. That's very interesting. Again, from education to matters of national security and, leakages, basically. The government evidently is doing a mass crackdown, the Port Klang smuggling as well as the human trafficking ring of this whole sorts of transport services. Over time, it actually, hurts the country. To what extent? The reports that we gave you shared, with the smuggling in Klang, at least more than 3 billion was lost, right? For the human trafficking ring, we don't know because assets were not declared, obviously, and lives were not. I mean, when it comes to assets, it's in terms of the exchanges in terms of transaction, but when it comes to human lives, the cost of it, we also do not know. Maybe some are actually underreported. Anyway, unfortunately, this is the end of our episode. If you do like our episode, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share with friends. Turn on the notification bell if you haven't already. You will not only get Beyond the Headlines update, other reports from New Straits Times Online will be delivered to you. Other updates from what we've discussed today will also be delivered to you. Follow us on X, Threads, Instagram, as well as Facebook. I would like to thank Hazwin for joining me. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you to our guests that gave insights for this particular episode, and to our audience. Again, thank you for tuning in until the end. My name is Amalina Kamal. I'll see you next week.